So today's guest, we're going to start with Janella Bradley, our very own. I know you know her. We love her. She is a part of the Couples Academy team. Her and her husband have been with us for a few years now. And we want to really just get into the weeds about communication. So welcome, Janella.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm so excited about our time together.
You know, it's cool because just communication is something that women do naturally. Like, you know, we get together and we could just talk. We could talk for days, especially when we find something that we have a commonality about, right? So we have kids.
Yes.
So we could talk about kids all day long. We're married, so we could talk about our husbands all day long. But sometimes we hold our tongue. Sometimes we don't say the things because as wives, we also cover, don't we?
Yes.
That also happens in the midst of our marriages, don't you think? Like oftentimes there are things that just need to be said.
Yes.
And we struggle to say them for many reasons because there's ego or there's tone and there's the way that we go about it. So I want to get into the weeds a little bit about communication and how we can help our wives learn how to speak their truth without getting into conflict. What do you think are some good ideas on how to say the things you need to say without starting a fight?
Exactly. And a lot of our couples actually have difficulty with that. Communication is one of the top things that cause couples to actually reach out for help or sometimes end in divorce because they just cannot get it together in that area. So as wives, I think what happens early on, we get so busy and involved in life and things begin to just move very fast. And what communication is, if it's frustrating, you kind of stay away from it because you have so many other things to do and you just don't want to fight. So what happens is the communication actually stops. Husbands and wives are just not talking sometimes, like just out the gate, just not communicating. One of the things that you can do to help with that is if there's a problem, you have to be honest. You have to first be honest with yourself that this is a problem and this is an issue that I need to communicate. When you kind of take that pause and realize, okay, it's an issue, it won't kill us. The way I enter into this conversation is going to matter. So if it's something that's aggravating, frustrating, or upset to me, I need to make sure that I calm down before I bring it to my husband. Because if I go in blazing, angry, with all the frustrations, with all the things that are going on, there will not be a lot of effective communication going on. Yeah. So one thing the wives can do before they even approach a conversation or enter into communication is take a breath. Pause.
Take a breath. Let me say something about that because you're all up in my business. Right. We're not Couples Academy for no reason. We're Couples Academy because we done ran a few laps around this track. Right. Yes, and I know I'm a go in blazing type of person.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And don't let it be, I done told you about this before,
okay? That's me. Like, okay, I'm cool, calm, and collected until this is the fourth time I done said something. Right. And so I think a lot of people resonate with that, right? We know what we're supposed to do. I don't think there's any wife that doesn't know I'm supposed to approach this situation calmly, but it's frustrating. It is real deal frustrating to deal with the situation over and over again. Exactly. I was never raised to do that, like to be calm. I was raised to fight. Yes. I have 3 brothers. Yes, okay. Absolutely. I was raised to fight with my voice, with my face, with my tone, shut you down, right? Like I was raised to look crazy so that if you crazy, you're going to question how crazy I am. We're going to decide who's the craziest.
Right. My question is what we doing today?
Right.
I'm going to match you, okay? But with anything, one of my favorite words, you'll hear me use it a lot, is being intentional in everything. So if you know you have that already, because I think a lot of us can relate to that. We have that fight in us and it's like, please, sir, do not bring that up out of me. I am really trying. I'm trying to be that proverbial woman to keep the calm and peace. But right now you're working on my last nerve. Okay. So I'm about to come at you. But when you have seen that this does not work, and you have been beating your head against the wall, why do we continue to do things that don't work? It does not work.
It doesn't work.
Causing all kind of hell and calamity in this house. Yes. So I'm going to have to change my approach. As much as I want to tear you up right now, tear this place up, I know it's not going to be effective with our communication. So true. So I have to pause.
Yeah, you got to pause.
I got to take that breath.
Yes, write that down. Pause. Okay.
Exactly.
And the thing is that you'll find at the pause, you have an internal battle, right? The pause is the moment for you to fuss and fight and struggle with yourself.
Exactly.
To do the thing that you know you're supposed to do.
Exactly.
Right. And when we don't take the pause, then we respond with our nature.
Exactly.
And that is the problem, right? The big part of this is acknowledging, okay, hold up. It actually isn't my husband's fault that I'm acting like this. He's doing what he's doing to get on my nerves. But at the end of the day, I need to draw a circle around my own 2 feet and check me.
Exactly.
And then on the other side of the pause, what happens, Janella?
So once you take that pause, what comes out next is important. So you want to have that word of peace. You don't want to come in anger, because what happened is after the pause, and if you still come out blazing, he's going to lose the message. He's not going to even hear what you're saying, because what he's going to get caught up in is all the action and all the drama that's coming out, and we're not getting any result. Why are you yelling at me? What's wrong with you? So the problem that you mentioned has never been discussed. Now we're talking about how you're acting and how you're responding. We keep going in circles. And then if this goes on long enough, what you're going to do? Retreat, go opposite ways. You might get in the car, drive off, go upstairs, get on Facebook, and whatever you needed to communicate about, whatever the issue was or whatever the messaging was, it was missed again. And guess what? We keep repeating this, and our problems are growing and growing. That stack is getting bigger and bigger. Then we pull out a rug and cover it, and then we wonder, what in the world has happened to our relationship? But because we keep communicating ineffectively, we keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. And now we have a whole heap of trouble.
You know what? What you're saying is making me think of something else, because for one, I think that people see the red flags, when they have broken communication styles. They see there's a distancing happening, but you want to be right. Right. And so you see he's drifting, you're drifting. Words that should have been said haven't been said, or things that were said shouldn't have been said and nobody corrected it. And you just drift. Do you think that we become oblivious to what's the question? Do you think that we are oblivious to the ultimate ramifications of allowing ourselves to drift and that lack of communication?
I'm so glad you mentioned the red flags.
Red flags.
Oh God, we have become pros at getting bleach and spraying those red flags.
Oh gosh.
To make it like, oh, it's not there.
Okay.
We have become really, we don't want to deal with the conflict so much. So even if the flags are there, we ignore them. We begin working on not paying attention to the flags instead of just addressing the red flags. Or we will talk ourselves out of what we're seeing. Like, maybe it's me. It can't be that bad. Maybe they had a bad day. And so if you stay in that positioning for so long, then we become oblivious, or we become numb, or you start hearing all those different things like, it's just been that way so long, why bother? Because we did not want to really deal with what was happening before us because it was too much. So now we're just oblivious. We're just pretending that it's not there. But guess what? If you have not dealt with it, it will come to surface. So when it's small, when you get that first little nudge that something is there. I wish I would have got that early on in marriage. Like I was wanting to have peace so much in my home that any sign of trouble, I'm like, okay, what can I do to just make it right before I even bring it up? Like I'm already trying to fix it before I had a conversation about what I was seeing. So the lack of conversation out the gate, ignoring the red flags, being oblivious to what was happening. And guess what? Time was marching on. If you have a job where you're working 12 hours a day, half your day is already gone. And if you're doing that 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week, imagine the distance and the issues that was small in your marriage or in your relationship. If you have not put any time, paid attention to those red flags or those small things, or some things really big, but we done chopped it up and made it into a little bitty cuisine, but it's still there. After a while, that thing has turned into a big monster.
So what are we supposed to do? Because, I'm hearing that you're trying to keep the peace. You didn't want to be in conflict. You're seeing red flags. So how does she deal with red flags without being in conflict? Because I feel like a lot of women do go speak up and say, like, you know, this isn't looking right. What's this? And they're gaslit, right?
Exactly.
They're thrown off the scent of the trail. And so you just say, okay, well, I'll just let bygones be bygones. You know, he said this, he said that. And this to me translates in so many other areas of our lives, because it could just be needs that I have. If I have certain needs and I keep telling you about these needs, but now I'm a nag and I'm annoying you, but I'm telling you, I need this for me. This is important for me. If I'm not being heard, how do I get my message across? What do I do to fulfill my purpose, my needs, my desires without being in conflict? And I have to articulate it. How do I do this?
Exactly. So it's twofold to me, because like you have the person, like you said, that's a nag. Like, I'm in your face. I'm telling you what's going on. You gaslight me. You're not paying attention. Maybe the way I'm saying is turning you off, but the bottom line, there's no resolve. So it's that person. Then it's the other person who want to be so peaceable and keep everything nice, neat, and quiet that they're not even addressing it. It really starts with honesty within yourself, right? It's like, okay, this need that I have, I know that is important to me, and I have to get my husband to see that. So you think about the ways that you've been approaching it. Maybe it was the timing. Maybe it was the tone. Maybe it was the attitude. Maybe it was just the disrespect. Some of us are very abrasive, and your husband has now shut down because you talk to him like a child. The way, if you have children, if you talk to your children the same way when you want something done, and then you turn around and have that same attitude with your husband, he's looking at you like, girl, who
are you talking to?
Right.
Who are you talking to?
Right. You are not my mama, and we're not about to do this. So he's shutting down. So when I say have that honest conversation with yourself, like, how am I how am I approaching this situation? And 9 times out of 10, if you are that abrasive person who come out the gate blazing, I need this, I want this, do it right now. You have heard in your life sometime before, the way you talking to me, something gonna happen if you continue this. You've heard it before. It's not that it's just your husband who's receiving it. You're showing up in other areas in your life like that. So when the honest conversation with yourself is like, how am I approaching this? Have I really just sat down with my husband and talked to him like a human, talk to him in love? And also, after I share my needs, let me hear from him. What is he saying? How is he processing this? A lot of times we don't give ourselves that space to circle back, like to complete the communication.
I love that.
Process.
We don't give him that space to circle back. We shut it down and walk away and never look back.
Right. And I would ask, well, what did he say after you said that? Then the eyes start rolling in the head, because there was no circle back. Happened. There was no circle back in this need that you had. It was angry. It was, animosity. It was, I'm storming out the door. So there was never any resolve. So when you come back, it's more and more heightened. So the person who's trying to keep the peace and don't even want to have the conversation, the honest conversation within is, okay, why am I not addressing this? What is causing me to break down? Okay, is peace, so-called peace in your home worth risking your need and feeling validated or getting the things that you need? Is it worth that? Because over time, that's going to turn into resentment. There's consequences for every behavior, whatever it is. So if you're not addressing it, it's a consequence for that. If you're abrasive and trying to get your point across, it's a consequence for that. And guess what? We still have unmet needs when we don't get to the bottom of what this is.
Let that breathe. My God. It makes me think about my next question about vulnerability. Vulnerability is, I don't know, it's kind of becoming a cuss word because wait, I'm supposed to be vulnerable about, how can I be when I've had to, man up in so many different ways. I've had to take it on the chin, whatever the circumstances are, to continue to be this wife I'm trying to be. I'm trying to live out what God has said I am as a wife, the persona and all of it. It's a heavy load. I'm working, I'm raising children, I'm supporting my husband. I'm doing so many things. It toughens me. And then you want me to be soft, pink, and fluffy. How do we talk about that? Because what you're saying is it requires vulnerability for you to communicate. Circling back, that requires vulnerability. I have to say, okay, Danielle, you was wrong for that. go back in there, put your hand on his shoulders and say, and you got to literally have that self-talk and do it. Right. So talk to us about that. Like, how do we tap into our feminine energy when we've been just elevated and manning up and we just got into a fight and we know we need to circle back?
I actually love the word vulnerability. It just sounds so sweet rolling off your mouth. You have to look at it differently so it won't be that cuss word. It's like if God say I'm this beautiful, soft, angelic vessel, if he says that when he describes a wife or describe what a woman is in the Bible, if he says that, that means I can do it. I take that approach. Like it's something that I can actually do because God created me. So those things that is in the Bible that he say we should be, that means I actually have the ability to do that. So you have to give yourself permission to be soft, even when you had to take it on the chin and go through all of those tough things and carry the household and pay the bills and do everything like you, the man and a woman. Even when you are there, you still can give yourself permission to be soft, because if you do not, softness, openness, vulnerability won't ever come to you because you have built yourself up with this big concrete wall. It has started within. So on the outside, that's what's going to come to you. You're going to reflect who you are. So you have to be vulnerable. You have to find that open space. It does require you to be open. It does require you to be safe. Soft. I also know that a lot of times in my life, I had to be tough and I had to, really push through and dealing with the public and stuff like that. You get people with mental illness, all kind of different spirits and people coming at you. So you had to be tough, but I couldn't stay in that space all day. What I had to be at work, I didn't want to come home and be that way. So it was a choice. Being vulnerable is a choice. We know everything is a choice. And it's the same thing with vulnerability, because if you do not do it or accept it, you're going to keep getting that same resistance. You're going to keep getting that hardness. So to be open starts within. Like, I actually can do that. That is within me. My circumstances and all the things that are outside do not have to dictate every single area of my life. And I can actually do this if I so choose to. So when you're looking at your husband, even if he's getting on your nerves, the Bible say like the women carry things that can actually touch and soothe a man's heart. And how you tap into that is presenting vulnerability. He's already a man. He's not looking for you to be him. He needs that softness in you. He needs that, and you need to show that to him. He sees the different parts of you. He does not want you in one way all the time. I live a life of balance. Balance is very important to me, because if you get out of balance with anything, you're going to have problems. So I think of health. If any of your electrolytes like sodium or potassium, if anything get imbalanced, you're going to have some problems, right? And that's the same thing in life. If you're not balanced in life, you're going to have some problems. Case in point. For church ladies, come here. Let's have a seat. Let's talk. The ladies who love church, love the Lord with all their heart, mind, and soul. You cannot be in that space all the time.
24/7, right?
You cannot
go home to your family.
Right. You cannot be praying the heavens down 24/7. And even like when you and your husband are coming together spiritually to pray, set the house in order, there's a time and place for that. But you are required to do other things. You're required to meet emotional needs. We all are. So you can't be out of balance. So vulnerability is one of those things that you need to have balance in your life. You can't show up hard. At some point, you're going to have to relax, be soft, be open, and it starts with honesty within.
So vulnerability is a choice, okay? But I'm going to speak for the trees.
Yeah.
I got a tree swaying back in the back of the room. So, I mean, everything that you're saying is 100% right. It is our choice, right? I said this in the first episode, that I don't take for granted who I'm married to, right? That he is an actual covering for me. He's a covering over our family. I have that peace and I can rest in that. There are a lot of women listening who are saying, I hear what you're saying, sis, but I don't have that covering, because there's order to all of it, right? So if I'm here to help and I got to be vulnerable and do all these things, I got to be physically available, emotionally available, all the things. But my husband isn't in his proper place, right? He is not covering us. I have a struggle being vulnerable to somebody who I don't feel safe with, because he's not stepping into his role as a protector, right? That's a reality too.
It is.
Now, I know what I think about that because God did not make concessions for his word in that way. What he said is what he said.
That's right.
But then there are circumstances, right? So what do you say to the wife that's sitting there like, how can I be vulnerable to this man who I can't even trust?
Exactly. And that is a real thing. That is a real issue, real concern. And it's the right question to ask in that situation. The first thing is you're responsible to God first. So we have guidelines that we have to follow. If you are a woman of God, you know that there are certain ways that you have to live, and it's not according to your husband. Like, you're still responsible for you. So in all things, you always want, if you're in your prayer time, you ask for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding as to when to approach this man with vulnerability, because it is a part that you can use to get your husband to get in his place, or to aid him, or to show him how important it is. It's actually in who we are as wives. We have that ability. So that comes with wisdom. If you know he's unsafe, and maybe, I don't know what it could be emotionally abused or whatever may be going on in your house, you know what that thing is. And when you see him, you spend time with him, you know him, you pay attention to his movements, and you know, okay, now might not be a good time to be open to him in that, but there will be a time for you to be open and honest with him, because how will you move forward? How will you get to the place that you need to be if you don't exercise those qualities that you need to get movement in your relationship? So you can't pack it away. You just have to know when to use it, when to exercise that. And that comes through patience, that comes through prayer, leading of the spirit. You need that.
All of it.
You need it. So it's a way to get around, but to throw your hands up and say, I'm not doing it because he's this way. That's why couples stay stuck year after year, because no one wants to move. It will require, even if your husband is not the person he's supposed to be, you did choose him. This was your mate that you decided to do life with. So there's some quality in him that you love. Something made you say, I do. So whatever that part is, if it's still there, you can speak to that part and vulnerability, whatever that is. Maybe when you all just go sit by the lake and his spirit just settle and calm, you know, those different things that make your husband tick. If you spend any amount of time, there's a part of you as his wife, that connection, whether you are on bad terms or not, you know him in ways that no other woman know him. So you have to tap into that and use your vulnerability in that area. No, he may not be able to handle the access of having that softness in every area, but there is some area that you can touch him with that.
Yeah. And I love all that you're saying. It's so spot on. And it makes me think about the potter, you know, like as a wife, we get to mold and shape our husbands with our words in so many ways that we're not clear on because nobody's really talking about it. We speak death to them. We remind them of their failures, how they can't do this, they can't do that. And then they don't. Exactly. And they prove us right with our own words. But then we can speak in a different kind of way. We can learn our husbands. We can study them and know, okay, this is the best time to approach him. Yes. And one thing I want to say is that, you know, vulnerability, to be able to give it is different than it being received. Like I can show you softness, but you still may not be able to receive my softness. That doesn't mean that I just withdraw my vulnerability and my softness from you. Exactly. It's almost like chiseling away at a rock. It's like you got to just chip. Okay, it's too hard on this side. Walk around to the other side, do something else. Chip. Yes. All right, let's see what, you know, and the longer you're chipping, all of a sudden you get a crack. Yes. Right. And then you crack that thing wide open. I think we just give up too soon. And we haven't studied our husbands long enough, all sides of them, to understand how do I get in? Getting in might be finding out some mess you never wanted to know. Right. But you got in. Yeah. And a lot of people, that's their story. Like everything came crumbling down because the walls came down. Exactly. And then you find the real man in there who's very vulnerable, broken, and needs somebody to speak some life back into him. So we have so much more authority than we give ourselves credit for. Exactly. And maybe our mothers and our mothers' mothers never told us any of these. I think that's really the problem. Like a lot of us, I'm talking about me now. I wasn't told how to be a wife. I didn't come from a healthy 2-parent household where somebody sat me down and said, baby, this is how you talk to your husband, honey.
Exactly.
I did not, I had to find out by trial and error. Is that your story, or was it different for you?
It was different because I did have women in my life that had wonderful marriages. Like my parents, they were actually over their marriage ministry at church. And that was a part of us. And they really, their private life was just like their public life. They did love one another. It was genuine. So I saw them working together. I saw them resolve issues. I saw forgiveness. I was able to see a man in a household really love his wife and take care of her and be intensive. My father was a man of integrity. He was a really good man, and he loved my mom. She came from a different household, so she was a fighter. She, rough around the edges, but together they met each other where they needed to be, and it was like a perfect balance. So when my mom was rough and tough, my dad was the one who would bring calm and peace, and it's like, okay, we don't need to do that. Patricia, go sit down. It's like he really brought that balance. So I did see healthy marriages. My grandparents, they were married 50 plus years until she passed. My uncles and aunts, 45, 50 years. So when we have family reunions, we could just see
legacy everywhere.
But when you take on marriage, it's not an automatic thing that you're going to have this perfect marriage. You're going to show up the perfect wife because your spouse comes from a different place. So even with me having tools and seeing women be kind and not just, I saw the traditional way, like my grandmother, she was in the house. She never worked. She just took care of my grandfather, the kids. They had 8 kids. I mean, I saw that traditional, but I also saw the full-time worker in my mom and still doing all the different things, getting us to church, going to school. So I saw all the different variations of marriage. But when it was my turn to show up, I took those good principles. But my husband, his parents were together for quite some time too, but there was some things in his upbringing. What anybody have to do? You bring in different things to the table that I had to work through, like, oh my God, I thought it was going to be easy because I saw this, but no, it requires work. It requires both of us to get on the same page. So I did see good marriages in front of me, but it did not stop the work that I needed to do, how I needed to set my family together, how I would show up as a wife. But I was blessed enough to be able to pull from my tool bag, but it was up to me to use it because the problems and issues that came in my marriage, I could have put all that stuff down and be like, we're about to go to blows. Like I had a choice to be, am I going to be that woman to speak life into my husband when things are not going the way that they should? Will I be that woman to run for the hills because you're not looking like my daddy? I messed up. I'm done with this because I know how a man is supposed to treat his wife. I've seen it all around, and I could have looked down on him or made him feel some kind of way because initially he wasn't like all of the men that was in my family. But I always would go back to the man that I fell in love with, the man that I said yes to. I look for ways to celebrate him even in a difficult time. So going back to what you said, I just want to talk about this. Words are so powerful, and we spend too much time talking about the problem. We spend too much time tearing one another down because we are so familiar. We spend time with each other. We just get caught in all the issues of our mate that we forget about the gifts, the qualities, the goodness that they have because we're so frustrated and angry. So those words we say are very meaningful. It goes back to being intentional. I know things are not right, but I know we can get it together. Just saying what you want can sometimes reset the tone. Just speaking what you want to see in your relationship can get things back on course. In your marriage, get things back on course if you begin to change your outlook. And maybe as the wife, sometimes for the person who like, yeah, that sounds good, because you always have that person who's going to refute everything you're saying. If that is your plight, if that's where you are in life, is what you're doing working? That attitude that you have, is it moving? Being angry and frustrated, how is that serving you? Have you really used the tools as a helper to actually help? Do you even know the tools? Have you positioned yourself to fill your tool bag? And then even when you get a whole sack of tools, which ones are you using?
Well, I feel like you was in my show yesterday. because we were talking about the toolbox. Actually, no, it was a lesson we were doing in Unearthed Mastery. We're talking about the toolbox. Like, is your help helping? Because a lot of women want to jump to the purpose and passion. I got a purpose. I got a passion. I got a calling. But you've forgotten your first ministry.
Yes.
You have to do well with that. The Bible is even clear about that. Like, you need to show yourself approved with what I gave you so that I can expand it and bless you to do more. And I think a lot of times wives, we're frustrated. We're frustrated with our situation. We're very talented. We can do a lot of things all at once, and we're trapped. We feel trapped with all of the daily to-dos.
Yes.
And things aren't going well with the husband. So we say, forget this. I got a purpose and a passion over here. You done abandoned everything God gave you to take care of.
Right. That reminds me of a story. My mom, well, I actually was old enough to remember this. My mom loved mission work. She loved mission, and she wanted to go off to Africa and just help and save the world.
How old were you this time?
About 6. Okay. So I'm little, right?
Yeah.
I'm small. And my dad, he was so gentle and kind. And, he supported her with all of her doings and whatever she wanted to do. But when she decided that she was going to go off to Africa and do her mission work, he said, Patricia, charity begins at home and spreads abroad.
Yes, it does.
We have these little people here. He said, I'm not trying to say that you can't do that, but now may not be a good time for you to do it. So he didn't tear her passion down. He's like, maybe right now it wasn't a good time for our family for you to break off and go to Africa. Timing
is everything. My pastor, when I met Hassani, my pastor's wife at the time, she said something. She probably has no idea how this affected and landed at that time. But I wasn't married at the time. I had no children. And she was talking about seasons because she had little children at that time, and people were calling on her. She could sing, she could preach the house down, and people were calling on her, and she had so many opportunities, but her husband was the pastor of this church. She had small children, and she talked about seasons. This is not my season. There will be a season when I'll be out here doing all the things that I need to do. And that stuck with me. Yeah. And things like that have always stuck with me because, again, I didn't really have that structure to glean from at home. That's why when I hear you say what you said, it's admirable for you to be able to pull those lessons from the environment that you were raised in, because it's just flowing out of you. It came out of you because it's what you picked up along the way. It wasn't necessarily taught, but it was caught from your observation. Yes. And so I look at that and I think, okay, I didn't have that. I had to get bits and pieces here and there and everywhere, but my children have it. Yeah. And so I'm like, I picked up enough pieces around to be able to create an environment for my children to have and to see what I was unable to have and to see. But to this day, I recognize that I needed to be present for home, for family, for all that I have going on before I'm released to do my own thing. And then in due season, okay, when you go to your husband because you have solid communication, right? He will say, go.
That's right.
You won't have all this tug of war going on. You won't have a fight and frustration or competition because you did your wifely duties well. Right. Like the Proverbs 31 woman. She was a woman of the world. She was in real estate. She was all that and a bag of chips.
Yes, she was.
But she did not neglect home.
She did not. And you said something so key, like I had the upbringing and I had the tools and things that come back to me because, like you said, I caught it. But for the person who's out there and you're saying, well, I wasn't taught, I didn't have it. God will not leave us in this world without the things that we need. You're going to be able to pick up the things that you need to do the job you needed to do. Just like Danielle just said, you were able to get that from your pastor's wife. For the person listening to this podcast, you're able to hear it, but you have to catch it. And even like what I said, even though I was brought up in that, I still had a choice to use those things. Of course, I learned other things out in the world, hearing things that didn't line up with that. So I had a choice. I could have gone that way, or I could have used the principles that were in our home. So we can't keep using the excuse, my daddy never showed me how to do this, my mom ain't do. You can't use that, because along the way, and if you haven't, if the person was sitting out there and say, well, I can't even think of a pastor wife or a neighbor, or anybody, well, you know that's your first prayer today.
Mm-hmm.
Lord, send me someone, something.
He sent it. This podcast
right here,
yes.
right here. So you're getting what you need to be that wife, that proverbial woman, that Proverbs 30, all that. If you desire that, he's going to give you the tools, give you the wisdom, give you the knowledge and understanding to do that. We just have to have a willingness and heart. And if you don't have it, be honest. Everything starts within. So I'm honest, like, I don't know how to do this wife thing. Lord, show it to me. Break it down to the level where I understand, where I get it, where I don't have to look to the right, to the left, but you put it in me and I can walk confidently in who you call me to be, who you want me to be as a wife. You didn't put it in a maze for me so I could be digging and trying to find it. It is right here available. Just be open to receive it. So if you're looking for ways to get to your husband's heart, it can start with prayer. Lord, give me what to say, how to say it, when to say it in that moment. Let me study this a little bit more so I can change my approach. I see my approach is not working. My husband may not be in a healthy space where he can even recognize, but Lord, I'm a willing vessel. Start with me. Use me. Because guess what? You have to do the work regardless, whether your husband stay jacked up or not.
Okay.
You still have to do it because you have other responsibilities in life that will benefit from you being vulnerable, that will benefit from you being open and honest with yourself. So it's not just the work for your husband to get him to do the things that you need him to do. It works in every area of your life. So when you show up as a suitable helper, you're going to be suitable in every area. Because those qualities don't just stop at husband. Those qualities follow you. So when you walk in a boardroom, you're so used to practicing that, you embody it. So when you go before whomever, it goes with you. So now you know when to pull back. Now you know when to speak up. Now you know when to hit the door. So because that's your life. That's that whole thing about being balanced and living in principle.
Woo-wee. I hope y'all are picking up what Janella's dropping down. Janella, I just got one question for you. One more. What are you working on? What do the people need to know about you and what you're working on in your ministry with your husband? Tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, Lord, I'm so excited about this phase in life. I said I was not going to cry. Y'all know I cried.
Go ahead, cry, girl. We ain't got no tissue though, but
just that question, it just touched my heart and my spirit because this phase of my life, I'm so excited about it. I'm so excited that God has positioned my husband and I to be with Couples Academy, to work with individuals and couples to get better marriages, to grow as individuals. So we're excited about the work that we're doing as practitioners with Couples Academy. And also we have Breakthrough with the Bradleys because we know the gift that God has put in us. When you work with us, you will have breakthrough. It's when you connect with us, breakthrough is going to happen. So we're excited about Breakthrough with the Bradleys. Roland and I we both have individual projects that we're working on that we're going to be excited to share. You can follow us on Breakthrough with the Bradleys on Facebook and Instagram. And of course, Couples Academy. We're there. If you want to keep up with us and know what's going on, you can park right at Couples Academy. And we're on the team because we are part of the team and we're so happy about it. And outside of those things with family and ministry, God is just allowing us to be present for our kids. We have 3 boys. Our house is very busy, 14, 8, and 4. So we are in high school, elementary school, and pre-K. So we're like all over the spectrum right now. But it is just so beautiful to watch them grow and just to be there for them. So we have that part and just loving on our family, our church family, and just being where God wants us to be.
I love it. I'm going to stop complaining about my household because you just said you got elementary, middle school, and high school going on.
High school, elementary, and pre-K.
Oh my God.
Pre-K.
Woo, that's some work. But I hope y'all can see just the brilliance and the heart of God in this woman. And if you are in need of support, if your marriage is struggling, or just as a wife, as an individual wife, if you're really struggling, reach out. We have the support for you. And I know that you have a passion to serve God and to serve the people that he has assigned to you. And from what we heard, we need it. Okay. We all need a little bit of love and a little bit of strength in our spirit because wifing is hard. Like, let's stop fronting and acting like this is easy and this just comes naturally. It doesn't. Most of us are faking it till we make it. Let's be honest. Like most of us are trying to figure it out. Even when we come from a home like this where everybody had it together, sometimes it makes it harder because our expectations are through the roof, right?
Oh, that's going to be part 2. We have to talk about
part
the dirty
2
word called expectation.
Ooh.
Oh my goodness, the ones we keep hidden and never even share with our spouse, and now you're mad because they didn't do it. You had these hidden expectations that you did not even share with your spouse.
So we're about to bring it back. We're going to bring it back. And thank you for watching The Suitable Helper, and we'll be right back.